Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are focusing our lens on a work of fiction that has just had this immediate, almost seismic global impact, the novel Rituals of Belonging.
It really has.
And this isn't just another book topping the bestseller list. It feels more like a literary event, you know? It seems to be pulling at the exact same thread of human experience, but across different continents all at once. Our sources show this novel has just jumped over the usual barriers of culture and language almost instantly.
And that speed, it's unusual. It tells us something really crucial about the moment we're in right now. The sources all confirm this book is acting as more than just a story. It's being called an essential reflection on what it means to feel seen.
Or, maybe more accurately, what it means to feel unseen.
Exactly.
Because that's our mission today, to understand the sheer power of this narrative. It's already a huge bestseller, and critically, it's been translated into 3 different major world languages, like right out of the gate.
And that reach, that incredible reach, confirms that the very specific experience it talks about is resonating as something, well, universal.
So the sources suggest this isn't about being broad, it's about being specific. Radically specific.
It is. The consensus, when you look at the analysis, is that the book's power comes directly from the author's voice, his authenticity.
Okay, so let's start right there. Let's unpack the source of that authority.
Yeah.
The author, Hadi. All the research we have points to this profoundly direct link between the book's emotional weight and his own life.
Yeah.
The sources say his truth, his personal specific experiences, that's the engine driving this whole thing forward.
Well, it's the difference between, say, research and testimony, right? When critics analyze Hadi's writing, the authority comes from the fact that he, and I'm quoting here, lived every single word he wrote.
He lived it.
This isn't some theoretical exploration. It's rooted in his own reality.
And the sources are very specific about the kind of burdens he carries and how they translate into the story. It's not just a vague, he had a hard life kind of thing.
No, and that specificity is absolutely key. The analysis highlights his experiential understanding of the weight of an unfamiliar accent.
The weight of an unfamiliar accent.
Yeah. I mean, just think about what that phrase implies for a moment. It's not just about sounding different. It's that constant low-level awareness that every single word you say is immediately being filtered through some kind of perceived barrier.
That sounds like a constant mental tax. A tax levied every time you open your mouth. You're not just trying to communicate an idea, you're also managing an auditory profile.
Precisely. And that's on top of the other weight the sources cite, the discomfort of an unpopular birthplace.
Okay.
We know from the analysis his origin is from a place that is, quote, not on anyone's list of favored or familiar countries.
So that instantly places him and his characters outside of that automatic benefit of the doubt that someone from a favored nation might get.
It does. And it creates this profound psychological dynamic that's described in the research, the feeling of being measured the moment he enters a room.
The assumption that your origin comes before your personality, before your potential.
Yes. This measurement process, it forces a kind of narrative control onto you. The author doesn't get the luxury of starting the conversation.
Because the conversation has already started about him.
Exactly, based on these external markers.
That has to fundamentally change how you write about social interaction. That constant silent calculation others are making about you before you've said a single word.
It changes everything. And that's why the sources make this critical distinction that his writing does not imitate the immigrant experience.
It comes directly from it.
Yes. Imitation can only ever capture the surface stuff, the bureaucratic hurdles, maybe some language mistakes. But lived experience, that captures the internal unseen struggle, the psychological costs.
And that explains those descriptions from the sources.
Yeah.
No sugarcoating, no mask, no distance, only truth, reality, and lived experience. It's an unvarnished honesty.
It's a risk, right? He chose absolute truth over easy relatability. The lack of distance means the reader is forced to share that discomfort.
Right, a fictionalized account might give you a narrator explaining why a character is struggling.
Whereas Hadi's work just shows the character struggling, and you, the reader, you feel the heat of it immediately.
So let's transition to the central conflict that this authenticity really unlocks. The novel tackles what the sources are calling the quiet struggles of feeling different, unseen, or judged before speaking. This is where the story shifts from a specific cultural experience to something much more universal. It explores that sheer exhaustion of constantly trying to manage how people see you.
That internal battle. where you're always calculating how much of yourself you need to edit or hide just to feel okay in the world.
Exactly.
And focusing on that internal emotional truth is precisely how the novel achieves what's been called its rare depth that crosses cultures and generations. The analysis points out that the chapters carry an emotion you can feel rather than analyze.
So you're emotionally hooked before your brain can even put up a defense against the difficult truth it's showing you.
You are. And what's fascinating is where the story begins. The characters enter new worlds and they're expecting acceptance.
Which is such a basic human hope, isn't it? Entering a new job, a new school, we all carry that expectation.
We all do.
But the novel is titled Rituals of Belonging. That implies belonging isn't just a gift, it's a performance. It requires specific, repeated actions. So here's where it gets really interesting for me. What do the characters actually find instead of that acceptance they expect?
They find that belonging, it actually depends on this complex web of unwritten rules and silent expectations.
Okay.
And that is the core conflict. Acceptance isn't just offered up. It has to be, in a sense, purchased through conformity to these invisible standards.
And the invisibility is the cruel part. If the rules were written down, if someone just handed you a manual, it would be a task, but an achievable one.
Of course. But these unwritten rules, they're fluid, they're constantly shifting, and they often contradict what society publicly claims to value.
Which is why that emotional weight just builds and builds.
It is. These silent expectations shape everything. The sources say they shape how they must speak, behave, and soften parts of themselves just to be allowed in.
Soften parts of themselves. Just think about the layers of self-editing that requires.
It's immense.
You're forced to change your vocabulary, maybe adjust your body language, filter out cultural references that might make the comfortable majority pause for a second. That effort, trying to meet those invisible standards, that's the ritual of belonging.
And this leads us straight to the idea of psychological masking. The novel just vividly illustrates the emotional toll of carrying that mask. The source material is clear that this constant self-modification reviews the deep emotional weight of trying to fit in.
Right. You spend so much energy on being something less than your authentic self, just to avoid friction.
And this is why the book goes so far beyond just the immigrant narrative. Even if you, the listener, have never moved countries, you've definitely tried to fit into a new job or a new social group.
Oh, for sure.
You know that effort. You know the cost of having to soften parts of yourself.
That's the universal connection, the universality of masking. That's why Rituals of Belonging has struck such a chord. It's a mirror.
It is. It reflects not just the pain of the outsider, but that universal human effort of just wanting to be accepted.
It feels like the novel is almost a guide, helping people find the words for a feeling they've had their whole lives but couldn't quite, nail down.
I think that's right. And if we synthesize the novel's ultimate function, it starts by reflecting that cost, but it doesn't end there. It pivots. It pivots toward resilience, toward agency. It focuses on the courage required to stay true to oneself.
So it moves from the external constraints to their internal power to resist.
Yes, to resist that full assimilation.
And that courage, that ultimate refusal to completely conform, that seems to be the core takeaway the sources are emphasizing, is why this book stands apart.
It isn't a story about finding comfort in a new society. It's a story about finding comfort within yourself no matter what society demands. It's described as more than a novel.
It's an essential reflection on what it truly means to be human. And that definition of humanity resting on authenticity instead of easy conformity, that's the engine behind its success. People aren't just reading a good story. They're recognizing a kind of instruction manual for how to survive intact in a world that so often demands we diminish ourselves. So we've covered the key findings of this deep dive. The monumental impact of Albert Hadi's lived, unvarnished truth, the painful exploration of those pervasive, unwritten rules that govern belonging.
And its incredible global reach, all stemming from that emotional honesty.
Right.
And all of this leaves us with a critical, ongoing question to think about. If belonging requires you to modify yourself to fit these silent, unwritten expectations, if it requires that softening of core parts of who you are, then what is the real hidden personal cost of that compromise?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if we acknowledge how immense these pressures are, how do we even begin to measure and to celebrate the courage it takes to be radically authentic? That balance between fitting in and staying whole, that's the challenge Rituals of Belonging puts in front of all of us.
A profound thought to leave us with as we navigate our own silent expectations. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.